Disclosure. All information we have on these cases are public record. We are not making fun of anyone or anything. This channel is for awareness of cases and entertainment purposes only. Welcome back to our channel, Relative Detectives. Today, it's Renee's turn to speak, so take it away.
Take it away. I just wanted to say, in the last video that I did, I cleared my throat like 9,000 times. And I noticed it after we rewatched it. And I was like, oh my word, that is ridiculous. Like, I'm getting on my own nerves. So I know I probably got on y'all's nerves. So I apologize. But I had COVID really bad in like 2021 and got put in the hospital. And ever since then, I have cleared my throat. It's just like I don't know if it's a tick or like a side effect from having that or whatever, but it just, I don't know. I always feel like I have something in my throat ever since then. So I just wanted to say I apologize because I got on my own nerves.
I do not have to what I want.
It was bad. I know it was really bad. I got on my own nerves. But anyway, I will try to be conscious of it, but I'm not promising that I won't do it because sometimes I have to.
She does.
But we're going to get into this case now. This is another rough one. We're going to be talking about rape, torture, SA, harm against animals, and dismemberment. So if any of that is something you can't handle, back out of this video and go take care of yourself. So we're going to be talking about a serial killer from Kansas. His crimes took place between 1984 and 1987. And his name was Robert Berdella Jr., also known as the Kansas City Butcher and the Collector.
Oh.
And everybody called him Bob. So for the sake of this video, we're just going to call him Bob because that's the easiest. Bob was born in Cuyahoga Falls, Idaho. And he was born on January 31st, 1949. He was the firstborn son. His dad was Robert Berdella Sr. and his mother was Mary Louise Huffman. And he had a younger brother that was 7 years his junior, named Daniel. They were Roman Catholic. They went to regular mass and religious education classes. Bob was intelligent as a child. And this happens all the time. Like when you're reading about all these serial killers and whatever, they always say they were intelligent as a child. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, I've noticed that, yeah.
Like, I mean, they always are like, oh, they were so smart and all the teachers loved them and everybody loved them and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what happens to these people? You know, it's like, you know, they're supposed to be like this great, intelligent little kid and then they turn out to be horrible people. It's so weird.
I know.
I mean, I don't know.
That's what happened with your last case about the cult. It was,
oh, yeah.
He was intelligent and all that stuff, too.
I mean, if you are true crime people out there, you know when you read stuff, it's like, he was intelligent. She was intelligent. You know, like some of them go far in school. Like, it's just weird. But anyway, he wore thick glasses and he had a speech impediment. And so all the kids in school made fun of him. And now you know how that can be, like getting bullied, you know, getting made fun of. It's not nice, of course, but I mean, that messes with, you know, with the kids' self-esteem and, you know, the way they feel about interacting with others and, you know, being friends with other kids. And so, of course, that affected Bob, and he was more of a loner. And he didn't really stray too far from home. He also had high blood pressure as a kid too. So I think maybe just everything that he was going through as a child just kind of kept him, you know, isolated and didn't have many friends and stayed close to home and all that kind of stuff. He was interested in like cooking and art and, all of that kind of stuff. And his younger brother, Daniel, was very opposite. He was athletic, he played all kinds of sports. And his dad, of course, loved sports. So he favored Daniel. So he always like picked on Bob and said stuff to Bob because he was very unathletic. He didn't do any of the things that Daniel was doing. So Daniel was the picked favorite of his dad. But his dad did abuse both boys, physically and mentally. It's been said that he whipped them with a leather strap and, stuff like that. So they were abused as kids. But Bob, when he became a teenager, he realized he was gay. And of course, this being, at this point, he's a teenager. So this is like the 1960s. You can't run around telling everybody you're gay back then. That's just not something that everybody accepted like they do now. So he knew he could not tell his Roman Catholic parents, that he was gay, or anybody else for that matter. He didn't want to be further picked on, I guess, or looked at bad or whatever. So he kept this stuff in and kept all his feelings about that in. And that made him be more aggressive, more condescending. Like, he was just a meaner person because he was holding all these feelings in. He went to see some of his friends and family on a trip when he was like 16 years old. And his father died while he was gone. So they waited to tell him till he got back that his father had died of a heart attack. So he was upset about this, of course, but his mom ended up getting married only like 2 or 3 months after his father died.
Dang.
So he was not happy about this at all. Like, he thought his mom had just totally betrayed his dad, and he hadn't been in the ground for that long, and here she is getting married again. So he turned to religion for a little bit. And he studied all different kinds of religions. And basically what he was doing was, trying to find comfort, like in this whole situation with his dad passing away and his mom getting remarried so soon and everything. Well, he soon just threw that out because that wasn't helping. And he withdrew even more from family, friends, the people that he did have in his life. He started to withdraw from all of them. He began throwing himself into collecting. He collected art, stamps, just foreign things from foreign countries, and he started doing like a pen pal thing with people in foreign countries. So he started collecting a lot of things, talking to different people like that. He was always into that kind of stuff. The art scene he was really into. He graduated high school in 1967, and he enrolled in the Kansas City Art Institute. And he really thought about being like an art professor. He thought he would be good at it since that was, his passion. He loved the art scene. He moved to Kansas City after he enrolled in the Kansas City Arts Institute into an apartment. His first year went pretty good. He was doing good in school, and of course all the professors said he was smart, very intelligent, But his second year didn't go so well because he started hanging out with the wrong crowd. He started selling and doing drugs and drinking. So, of course, at this point, he's, ruining his college career.
Mm-hmm.
So, around this time, he also started to abuse animals. And he took some of these animals into his art class and did these demonstrations in front of his peers in art class. He beheaded a duck, and then he brought in a dog.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I have dogs, so this is like, no.
Yeah, no. Not my baby.
No. Animal cruelty, no. But he did this. He got a dog and got different sorts of drugs and injected this dog with different things to see how it would react. And he kept a log of everything he was doing to this dog to see what it would do. Of course, they did not like any of this in the school.
Oh, I hope not. Damn.
He was looking at it as he's doing an art project.
Yeah.
I guess his mind wasn't, whatever you call normal now, but like his mind was thinking, oh, I'm just doing an art project and all these people should be appreciative of what I'm doing to show them how this works and blah, blah, blah. Well, of course, nobody wants to see animal cruelty.
No.
So it's like, no, dude, you got to go. You can't be doing this. So during all this time, he's still doing drugs. He's, drinking, acting a fool. So, acting a fool. When he was 19, he was arrested for trying to sell meth to an undercover officer. So, he posted bail a few days later, but then, not even a couple months later, he was arrested again for possession of LSD and marijuana.
Oh, LSD.
Yeah. So, in the end of that, the charges were dropped because there wasn't enough evidence. Mm-hmm. That's all it says about that. He was kicked out of school, of course, because of getting arrested, the drug use, the drinking, the doing the things to the animals in class. So he got kicked out. And he started hanging out with, all the drug addicts and prostitutes and runaways and all of that stuff. Because, who's going to hang out with a guy that does what he did in art class?
Not me.
Come on, y'all. You're sitting in class with a guy that is going to do horrible things to animals, and you're like, oh, I'm going to be his friend.
Yeah. BFFs.
No. Got to go.
Yeah, bye.
I'm clearing my throat again.
You've done it a couple times.
So, I'm trying to be conscious of it, I promise.
I'm going to put a counter. When I edit, I'm putting a counter up in the corner of how many times you clear your throat. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. She's cleared her throat 400 times in this video. So, at this point, he moved into another apartment. And he started letting these boys that he was hanging out with, the drug addicts and, sex workers and all that, come stay with him. And it doesn't ever really say whether he got off drugs or if he was still taking drugs through all of this. I'm not really sure. Mm-hmm. So he claims that he wanted to help these people, that he wanted to let them move in with him, and he was going to try to get them off drugs and try to get them off the street and, that kind of thing. But he was taking sex in exchange for them staying with him. Instead of paying rent, they were, pretty much doing the deed with him all the time. So, doing the deed. I guess that was funny.
Oh no, I was thinking, hey, I'm gonna raise your rent. You owe me 3 BJs.
Oh yeah, for real. Like that's so weird.
That's like how my thing is. How's he getting money? If like none of these people are paying rent, how's he gonna pay it? Okay,
we're getting to that.
Never mind.
Shut up. We're getting to that. You're not fast enough, Renee. Keep reading.
Yeah, hurry.
There goes my throat again. So, he's letting these boys live with him, and of course the neighbors are noticing. They're living in an apartment complex. Well, he tells his neighbors that he's trying to help these boys and this and that, and that he feels like a foster parent to them. So that's what he's portraying to like everybody around him. That he's just being a good, nice guy.
So at this point, how old is he? Would you say?
Because
apparently this is after college. So
yeah, he was born in 49. He graduated high school in 67. He's probably early 20s by now, maybe. No, I take that back. Yeah, he's probably like 30.
30? And you want to be a foster to all these boys?
He's probably like 30-ish at this time.
Okay.
But yeah, he's telling the big lie to everybody because basically he's using these boys is what he's doing.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he couldn't feel like, or he didn't feel like he could get like a proper relationship with somebody, or he just didn't want people to know that he was gay, or, I'm not really sure what was going through his head at this point. Because, I mean, you've got boys going in and out, in and out, in and out of your house. Like, what are you thinking people are going to think? So, I don't know. So, he worked. Here's your answer to your question.
Finally.
He worked as a short order cook in some restaurants.
Okay.
And actually did a really good job at that. So there's where he was making his money. Plus, he was selling some of the art and artifacts and things that he had, collected over the years or whatever. And at this point, he buys a house because he's saved money from working as a short order cook and selling all the artifacts and art and all the stuff. So he buys a house on 4315 Charlotte Street. And also around this time, he rents a booth. And this is 1982. He rents a booth in a flea market. And he opens up a business to sell all his art, jewelry, antiques, all the things he's collected. And he calls it Bob's Bizarre Bazaar.
So classic. So horrible name. Gotta think of something better.
The BBB. There you go. Clearing my throat. How many times have I done it?
I don't know. We'll find out when I edit.
She really gonna put a number up there.
Oh, I am.
How many times I clear my throat?
I'm gonna do it.
So while he was doing this antique shop thing, he made friends with a guy named Paul and his son Jerry.
Paul.
And they were there with their booth at the flea market too. So they helped each other out doing things back and forth and stuff like that at the flea market. But one day, Jerry, the son, and I think at this point he was only like 14 years old, he had told Bob that some of his friends and him were in the sex worker business. So, of course, Bob's light bulb was bing, 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 oh, hey, I can take advantage of this kid, right? So, I mean, they were friends for a while. And he would always help Jerry. Like over the years, if Jerry did something and got in trouble with the law or whatever, Bob would come bail him out, and give him money and do things like that for him. Well, one evening in the summer of 1984, Bob offered to drive Jerry to a club that he was going to. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this is where that this story gets rough. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be the victim section. So, warning. So he offers to drive Jerry to this club. But is that what Bob does? No. He drugs Jerry and drives him back to his house and ties him up. So he held him captive for 28 hours. And during this time, he was raped, tortured, and violated with different objects. He would wake up and cry out. Mm-hmm. So Bob would put a gag in his mouth. Jerry ended up dying from I cannot say that word.
I can say
asphyxiation. There it goes. From choking on his own vomit because he had the gag in his mouth. So after this, Bob's like, okay, what am I going to do? He takes Jerry to the basement and ties him upside down and cuts him and puts a bucket under him and lets the blood drain out of Jerry's body.
Like a pig?
Yes. And then after this, after all his blood is drained, he dismembers him. And each part of his body he wraps in newspaper and in trash bags. And he just throws the parts in the trash outside for the trash man to come get. Like, done.
The hell?
So the next day, the public trash comes by and picks it up and it's gone.
And he's like, all right, on to the next one.
That's exactly what he did.
So I guess that was just the taste of what he wanted.
Yep. That was his first victim.
Damn.
And, time goes by in between each of these victims. Like, he's not doing this like one a week. You know what I mean? But I have, again, condensed this down into a shorter amount of time, so we're not sitting here for 5 hours. But if you want to know more on this story, you can go listen to podcasts or look it up online, read about it. So on April 10th, 1985, Robert Sheldon came into Bob's house asking if he could stay with him for a while. I know, right? So Bob thought of Robert as kind of an inconvenience, but he let him stay anyway. He, of course, drugged Robert and tied him up.
No, Robert.
Bob said he was mad at Robert because he came home and found him drunk one night. And so that just irritated him. So he decided to hold him captive. So Robert was held captive for 3 days. And just like the other victim, he was raped and tortured. But it goes a little further in this one.
No.
Bob put Drano into his eyes, needles under his fingertips, and filled his ears with caulk, and bound his hands with piano wire. I think he was trying to, well, I mean, it says in the things that you read about him, and this is where I think that he has a lot in common with Jeffrey Dahmer. It's very similar in a way because they're getting these people and trying to make them like sex slaves, I guess, or make them stay with them. You know, they don't want them to leave. So, like the Drano in the eyes and the caulk in the ears and that kind of thing. It's like, you know, they're trying to find ways to take their sight, you know, take their hearing, you know, get them to be able to not fight back or, you know, be able to know what they're doing or whatever.
Yeah, it also kind of sounds like he's making his own art piece.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. But yeah,
it sounds like
he's all into art. So this is like part of his sick, twisted art thing. Yeah, for real.
I can see both ways. Jeffrey Dahmer and then the art. Yeah.
Okay. So he ended up suffocating him with a bag, and then he dismembered him and threw him in the trash, just like poor Jerry.
Dang, dude.
Like I said, I'm just skipping from, you know, one victim to the next because time does go by, but
I guess he just gets an itch for it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that with a lot of people. It's like, you know, they go and do something, and then it's like it appeases them for, you know, just a little while, and then it like bubbles back up, and they have to start it again or something.
They itch that scratch, and then the scratch comes back, and they're like, "Oh, I gotta do it."
Yeah, it's like, oh well, I'm gonna say it's like going on a diet and like not being able to eat, you know, ice cream for like 6 months, and then you're like, oh my god, I gotta have some ice cream, you know. Like, I mean, I know that's a weird analogy.
Oh, but it makes sense. It makes sense, yeah.
That's probably not the best analogy in our world, but, you know,
it works.
So in June, Bob found Mark Wallace.
I said Mark Wahlberg.
Well, I'm glad he didn't find him. I love me some Marky Mark. So he found Mark Wallace hiding in his tool shed. And Mark had helped him with yard work previously. So he already knew Bob and Bob knew him. He invited him in to his house, of course, and poor Mark went with him.
Run, Mark.
Because he had nowhere to go. So, you know, he, of course, held him captive, got him, tied him up, you know. He did the same thing he has done with the other ones, raped and tortured him. He put needles into different muscles in his body. He used electric shock on him. Yeah, it's like everyone that he does, he's using something different. Like he gets one little thing a little different each time. Like, you know. And of course he gagged him so he couldn't, you know, scream or say anything. Mark died from a combination of drugs, the gag, and lack of oxygen. During this whole thing, Bob has started keeping a journal, just like he had done with the dog previously. So he started writing down and taking notes on everything he was doing to all these victims and seeing how they would react to each thing he was doing. He wanted to know, you know, how they were going to react to each torture method that he used. Again, it's like you said, like, it's almost like part of his art or something.
Yeah, but now it's starting to sound like more like a science project.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't know. Either way, it's horrible.
You know what kills me though is like he's made it through his whole life, like through most of his life, until he gets into his 30s to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he went through his childhood, his teens, his 20s. Like, and he never really hurt anybody that we know of. And then all of a sudden, oh, I'm just going to start doing this. Like, what, you wonder, like, what clicks, to make them change what they're doing and make it worse.
Could have been the death of his dad and his mom and not finding anything religion and then being like, well, if none of them's got me, then I guess I got myself. And then himself turned into this.
Right. The next victim, James Ferris. He asked to stay at Bob's again. Everybody's asking to stay because he's, helped these kids before and took them into his home.
Well, my thing is, pause real quick at that. Okay. Like, oh, yeah, I've heard that we can go down here to Bob's and stay at his place because Jim said that, or Paul or Robert and all that stuff. Where's Robert? Like, has nobody seen Robert?
Nobody noticed they were gone?
Like, and they get into the house and they're like, hey, Robert, where the fuck is he? Like, like, how's nobody seeing that? And everybody keeps coming in.
That's true.
Anyways, continue. I was just thinking of that.
No, that's totally true. He asked to stay with Bob, and so they met later on that evening at a bar for drinks and stuff. And James came home with Bob, and of course, Bob drugged him and tied him up. He held him captive, tortured, raped him.
What did he have up this time?
He had him for 27 hours.
Okay.
He shocked him with 7,700 volts of electricity on different parts of his body. He also put needles under his fingernails and in his testicles. James, after the electricity and, just the torture, he kind of became delirious and didn't know his surroundings and, but Bob kept torturing him. He didn't care, how he felt, of course. I mean, come on. But he kept torturing him, and James at one point was unable to sit up for more than like 15 seconds at a time. And he wasn't breathing very well. And then he passed away. Todd Stoops, who had lived with Bob before, ran into him out in a park in Kansas City. Todd was a drug addict. And, of course, Bob offered Todd a place to stay. And they made arrangements that he was going to give sex for money and drugs. So basically, Todd, had sex with Bob to get money to buy drugs is what he was doing. So, not that makes us any better, but that's what's going on. Bob said he was attracted to Todd. So this is the first person he's been actually, I guess, really attracted to. So he decided that he wanted to keep Todd for longer, that he didn't want to let him go as fast as the others. And of course, I don't think he was really trying to let the others go within 24, 27 hours, but he was just experimenting and seeing what was happening and writing all this stuff down. And some people's bodies just gave out, So he held him for 2 weeks.
Dang!
And he tried, of course, to make him his sex slave. He shocked him in his eyes and injected drain cleaner into his larynx to try to keep him from seeing or talking.
Yeah.
Bob tortured and raped him, like the others. And after a week, Todd couldn't keep anything down when he was eating. So he was starting to get very weak. And he died on July 1st of 1986. And it said that a pathologist said that the death was a ruptured anal wall that caused septic shock. Now, I don't know, I read this, and I don't know if this is true, because in other things you read, it says all Bob's victims were dismembered and threw away, and that no bodies were recovered. So I don't know
They got that.
if that's true or not.
Yeah.
I don't know who got this piece of information or where it came from, but that's what I read. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. In the spring of 1987, Bob met Larry Pearson. They became friends, and Larry moved in with Bob and cleaned and cooked as a form of paying rent.
No sex this time?
No.
Oh.
Bob said he wasn't intending on keeping Larry captive. Like they were just friends at this point. He looked at him as a friend, and he just needed somewhere to stay. So Larry was, doing the laundry and cleaning up and doing all that as a form of paying his rent. So,
Will Larry make it out of here? We'll find out. Okay.
But Larry got in trouble a couple times, and Bob bailed him out of jail. So, of course, you've seen how Bob reacts to this kind of thing. He doesn't like it. So, he said that he didn't think that Larry appreciated the things that he was doing for him, because he kept, helping him out, and Larry wasn't showing appreciation. So, here we go. He holds him captive, ties him up. The way he did it, because Larry was already living with him, so he couldn't just grab him like he did the others. So he got Larry drunk one night, just like two friends getting drunk.
Yeah.
But while he was drunk, he had a chance to actually inject him with drugs. So that's how he, got him and tied him up. He injected drain cleaner in his larynx. He shocked him with electricity. He broke his hands so that he couldn't fight back. Bob said he was the most cooperative of all his victims. He tortured him for 6 weeks.
Dang.
But Larry said after that 6 weeks had gone by, it says that after that 6 weeks had gone by and he endured all this stuff at the hands of Bob torturing him, he said he couldn't take it anymore. And one evening when Bob was making Larry perform oral sex on him, he bit down as hard as he could. And of course, Bob screamed bloody murder because he was in pain from that. Boo-hoo, Bob.
Yeah.
So,
Sucker.
right. This, of course, just sent Bob into a rage, and he beat Larry to death. He bludgeoned him to death. He suffocated him and then dismembered his body. But he took his head and buried it in the backyard. So he kept a part of Larry. This was the first one he had actually kept.
Yeah.
So he buried his head in the backyard. I know.
Why?
6 weeks of that.
It's but why the head of all things?
I don't know.
It's so
Who
stupid.
knows? So on March 29th of 1988, Bob kidnapped Christopher Bryson. He was a male prostitute. He knocked him out with an iron bar and tied him up. And of course, Christopher was tortured and raped like all the others. But somehow, I don't know what was going on with this one, but Christopher, he must have been a smart one. He must have had street smarts or something. Because he gained Bob's trust somehow. And the way that Bob was tying everybody up was like with their hands over their head. Well, Christopher had talked Bob into tying his hands in front of him instead of over his head because he said it was uncomfortable. So I think Christopher maybe was acting like he was going to cooperate with Bob and actually do what he wanted him to do. Like he had to have been, smart and playing him somehow.
Yeah. Smart guy.
So he gained his trust. But Bob was, kind of apprehensive about it. But he told Christopher, I have went this far with others, but they're all dead now because of their mistakes. So he was trying to, of course, scare Christopher into not doing anything. Mm-hmm. He even let Christopher watch TV. So Christopher was doing something right over there. Of course, he, held him for a few days and, raped him and tortured him and everything. But Christopher, I think because he did gain his trust, didn't get the brunt maybe of some of the things the other victims had gotten, just because he was a smart one, I think.
Yeah.
So one day, Bob left for work, and Christopher was able to find some matches that Bob had accidentally left out. And Christopher burned his restraints off with those matches. And he was able to jump out of a second-story window of Bob's house. He was wearing nothing but a dog collar that Bob had put on him. That's demeaning as all get out. So this poor boy jumped from a second-story window, and he broke his foot in the process. But he made it out, and he was hollering for help. And there was a meter reader, a man that was, reading the electrical meters or whatever, heard him screaming for help and took him to a neighbor's house. And they called the police.
Good.
So he had told, the police got there, he told them everything that he had been through, everything that Bob had done to him. They sent Christopher to the hospital, and then some of the other police went to get a warrant for Bob's house. Christopher also told police that while he was being held captive at Bob's house, that Bob had showed him pictures of victims and that they looked deceased in the pictures. And Bob had told him that if he didn't cooperate, that he would end up like the men in these pictures. So the police ended up getting a warrant, and they searched his house. And this is what they found in his house. Now, at this point in the video, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to have to read from my notes because this is a lot of things that they found, and I'm not going to be able to look up the screen because I want to read off all of this stuff that they found in his house. So they found the burnt ropes, an electrical transformer, syringes, drugs, swabs, eye drops, iron pipes, rope, leather belts, a human skull inside a closet, the human skull in the backyard, several human vertebrae, human teeth, a hacksaw, a miter saw, a chainsaw, plastic barrels, bloodstains, hair, and flesh. They also found 344 pictures and 34 snapshots of various men. Bob's notebook, restraints, sexual devices, pornographic literature, needles, and a book about narcotics. That is everything that they found in his house.
Damn.
So, yeah. A luminol test lit up the basement with bloodstains.
I hope it does.
And they also found news articles that had looked like they'd been cut out and saved of some of his victims' disappearance stuff. So he was saving those. They also found the driver's license of James Ferris. Authorities put 11 detectives and 1 sergeant on this case. And thank God in this one, you hear in all the stuff, oh, they went to jail for this. Oh, they overlooked that. Oh, they got out. Oh, they did something else. Oh, wait, they went back to jail. Oh, they got out. Yeah. It's like they never look in their past. Yeah. We were just saying that in the last case, or one of the last cases, they never look back. No. Why don't authorities look back at what they've done, So in this one, the police and the detectives looked back into his past, and they discovered that he was well known in the male sex worker community. Oh, okay, good. So here they had all this stuff at his house, and then they found that out. They were able to identify some of the victims through friends and family looking at those pictures. Dang, that'd be horrible. How can you imagine? It's like a knock on your door and be like, hey, can you identify any of these people? Yeah, and it's like your brother or something. Like, your brother's been missing or your son's been missing or something. I mean, that's horrible. And they, you go down and one of those pictures is, your loved one. Yeah. That would be a horrible position to be in. That's awful. The skull in the closet was Robert Sheldon's. Oh, dang. And the skull in the backyard was Larry Pearson. Yeah. So, after they had all this, Bob was charged with the murder and dismemberment of Larry Pearson because they had his head in the backyard. So, they knew, I'm sure he was in pictures too in the house somewhere, but he had his head in the backyard. So they were able to get him for murder and dismemberment for Larry. Good. So July 22nd of 1988, he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder of Larry. And he told the authorities that he put a plastic bag over his head and tied it with a rope and let him suffocate. Dang. He didn't even try to lie. No. I didn't do it. None of that. He was just he pleaded guilty on that charge. Wow. And just told them what he'd done. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Good. He pleaded not guilty to the remaining murders. But he took a plea bargain on the advice of his attorneys to avoid the death penalty. So they let him plead not guilty, but he avoided the death penalty. The deal was for him to tell who all he killed, how he killed them, and where their bodies were. That way, I guess, they could give the families closure or, they're of course going to try to keep him behind bars for the rest of his life. So that was the whole plea. The plea agreement was for him to tell all that information. So he got just the one charge. He got one charge. He just got to tell us the rest. Yep. He got one charge with one count of murder, and that was for Larry. And then he took a plea bargain to avoid the death penalty and told about the rest of them. No. Death penalty he should have got. Oh, totally. I think so too. But he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. He gets a roof over his head, 3 meals a day, a bed to sleep in, a pot to piss in. Why none of these other men get any of that? Yeah, they got tortured. Yeah. And he just gets to live on. His life, yeah. So in his confessions about everything that he'd done, he said he got inspiration from the 1965 movie, The Collector. So when he was 16 years old, he had seen this movie and I guess thought it was the greatest idea. I don't know.
Have you seen the movie?
No, I've never watched the movie.
I never either. Guess what to watch it.
I know.
Maybe we can
inspire watch it now.
I don't want to be inspired.
No. The Collector is about a man that kidnaps women that he thinks is attractive and wants to keep them and make them fall in love with him. And of course, the first one he gets doesn't go so well, and she ends up dying. So then he goes on to get another one. So it's kind of the same thing that Bob did with the men.
Yeah.
So he said that was, his inspiration for what he had done.
But with Bob, did he want these men to love him, or was he just doing it to do it? It's the thing.
I know.
Like,
I mean, I know he wanted sex slaves.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he really wanted love. I have no idea. Like, I don't know if he knew what love was.
Yeah, because
you know what I mean? I mean, his dad was mean to him and his brother. Like, people made fun of him his whole life because of his glasses and his speech impediment.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he had no friends. His mom got remarried. She wasn't paying attention to him. So it's like, does he even know what love means?
Maybe in his eyes, this was love to him.
Yeah. I know. That's honestly kind of sad.
Yeah.
I mean, not that I condone anything that he did. That was horrible. But who wants to grow up like that?
Nobody.
So he said his victims, when he got them and tied them up, at that point they became not human to him anymore. That they were just objects
that's horrible.
of his using. So he didn't even view them as human anymore. And he had no remorse for what he had done. In the fall of 1988, his victims were determined to be dismembered, and body parts were in landfills, and the bodies were never recovered.
Dang.
So, I mean, the only things that were ever recovered was that skull and then the head in his backyard.
Did the detectives even go and try to look in the landfill?
I mean, at this point, what are you going to do?
I would say at this point, it's like probably dug down deep. It's just going to take forever.
Yeah. Bob had been diagnosed with depressive personality disorder and was a sexual sadist.
Ew, I hate that word.
I know.
Sadist.
It's so gross.
Yeah.
He was incarcerated at Missouri State Penitentiary, and he didn't like what people were saying about him.
Oh,
evidently in the media, they were running around saying that, of course, he was a murderer and he was this, he was that, he was mean. He didn't like what people were saying about him. So he decided to do a TV interview from prison. And he did this TV interview with KCPT, was the channel. And he tried to make himself look like a good person that had just made a few mistakes in life. I mean, come on, dude. Like, you're just
stupid.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
To think, I murdered, these 6 boys and, I'm going to make myself look like a good person that just made some mistakes.
Yeah.
What? No.
Your definition of mistake is way different than ours.
All right. I made a mistake. I put too much salt in this recipe.
Yeah.
That's a mistake.
Not chopping some people up and dumping them in the dumpster.
For real.
Crazy.
That's awful.
SOB.
And then the SOB complained about the prison conditions.
Oh, boo-hoo.
And said that it wasn't clean and blah, blah. Like, dude, you just tortured people.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares if you're uncomfortable? I'm sorry, but...
In the words of Justin Timberlake, cry me a river.
Right? I mean, no. And he said that and of course we go back to his childhood. He had the high blood pressure since he was a child. He claimed that in the prison they weren't giving him his blood pressure medicine like they should.
I can see that. I've heard.
Yeah, but there again, dude, I don't feel sorry for you. No. I'm sorry. When you do stuff like this, no. There's no feeling. You got to go.
Yeah.
Like, sorry. I'm just, no.
Sorry,
you're done.
Sorry.
So, like, you're torturing these poor boys, and you're complaining you're not getting your blood pressure meds. Like, dude, I'm sure that guy didn't want needles under his fingernails, but
and caulk in their ears.
Yeah.
Drano in their eyes, and
For real.
gagged on their own vomit.
And he's complaining he ain't getting his blood pressure meds. That's what kills me too about all the people like that. They do that every time.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, of course it's all about them because it's the way they feel and what they want and all that. But, it just amazes me that they torture people that way and then complain about
it's like
conditions in the prison or something.
You think you have the right to say something?
Yeah.
Like, shut the hell fuzzy up. Get out of my face.
Yep. You make your decisions. Everybody makes their decisions.
Yeah, you made your bed, now you gotta lay in it.
Exactly. So at 2 p.m. on October 8th, October 8th, 1992, Bob was complaining with heart pains, and he was taken to the hospital. But he died of a heart attack. He was only 43 when he died.
Ooh, that's kind of young. Not saying that, whatever, but that's young.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But he never displayed any remorse.
Of course he didn't.
For any of his actions of what he did.
Because in his eyes, he didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
So he's like, why should I be sorry?
Yeah. He was doing art projects, I guess, what he thought.
Ain't no Mona Lisa.
Right. No, in November of 1988, though, all his belongings were put up for auction because he owed legal fees. Oh. So everything in his home was put up for auction, and they made $60,000 from that auction, and they paid his legal fees with it. And then his home was demolished in 1988 also.
Yeah, get that bad juju.
So, out with the house.
Mm-hmm.
So he abducted, tortured, and murdered at least 6 men. Although more than 20 men were depicted in the 334 pictures that were found in his home. He only confessed to 6.
What?
So there was evidently more men in those pictures than just the 6.
Yeah.
But he confessed to the 6, which were Jerry Howe. He was 19 years old.
Ooh.
Robert Sheldon, 20. Mark Wallace, 27. James Ferris, 25. Todd Stoops, 23. And Larry Wayne Pearson was 20.
Oh,
and then of course Christopher Bryson, the boy that escaped. I did not see where his age was.
I would say he's probably in the 20s.
He's probably,
seems like he's got a type for the youngins.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure we could find how old he is. If we do find it, we'll put his age up here. Yeah. But he's the one that escaped and stopped this crazy fucker from doing anything else, to anybody else. But I don't know. I just don't understand it.
I don't understand it either.
I always say I don't understand people. But I've always wondered this too. And I think kind of the same way about like Jeffrey Dahmer and John Wayne Gacy. Mm-hmm. These crimes that these 3 men have, committed are very similar. And they all have very similar, like, childhoods or upbringings or, like they all discovered they were gay, at an early age, and they were more into cooking and art and doing this, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, John Wayne Gacy, he was more into that and hanging out with his mom in the kitchen. And their fathers did not like this, back in the day. They wanted them to be, sports and be a man's man. Yeah. So I always wonder, and I'm not giving excuses for these people in any way. I do not agree with anything that they have done. It's horrible.
Yeah.
But I often wonder that if it was acceptable to be gay then like it is now if they would have turned to this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like if you were able to go to your parents and say, you know, I'm gay, and your parents say, oh, okay, well, I love you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you are able to be yourself and carry on with your life and have a significant other and, you know, do what you want to do and be happy. Would you do this? Would they have done this? Or is it something that's just embedded in their brains and the chemicals are not right and something's not screwed in there right and they would have done it anyway?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you wonder about stuff like that.
Yeah, if it was like nowadays, would they have done that?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, nowadays, is there really even serial killers nowadays?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm so focused into the past serial killers that I don't really notice any nowadays.
Yeah,
but it's like, you know, you want to be this, you want to be that, cool. Do the other. You don't have to murder people.
I know. Yeah.
Like, there's other ways to go about this and everything. Talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Seek help. Like, you can't go to your parents for it because apparently his father died, Bob's father died, and then, you know, it seems like he cut off his mom because she got remarried. He has nobody else to talk to. Find somebody. If you go to college, go to school, talk to your counselor. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm with you. I'm like, I don't know.
I mean, that whole part's sad, but you do wonder, you know, if something was different, if it would have came out differently.
Yeah.
But I just hope that all the victims' families and everybody's okay today.
Yeah.
So thanks for sticking with us for this video. I know it was probably a little rough one, but we appreciate you hanging out with us. Yep. And we'll see you on our next video. Bye.
Bye-bye.